tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
It's just very scary. I mean, you don't think that something's going to crash out of the sky.
Deadly crash. A respected aviator among those killed on Gabriola Island. Also,
he had a very good life, and I wish the end of it wasn't so painful.
His stomach pain was actually stage 4 cancer. So why did doctors send him home twice? And
it is really the Grinch that stole Christmas today.
Who does this? Gifts for low-income families stolen from the Surrey Christmas Bureau.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Good evening. A plane crash has rocked the tight-knit community of Gabriola Island. Anita is there live tonight. So, Anita, what more do we know?
Mike, we know there are no survivors of this plane crash, but the exact number of people who died is still unclear. Transportation Safety Board investigators have been here on Gabriola Island all day trying to piece together what happened, trying to figure out how that plane came crashing down. A giant area around the plane site has been blocked off all day and will stay that way to the public until investigators are done their work here. What I can say is that the mood on Gabriola has been a bit somber all day naturally. Many people here witnessed the crash and they are reeling from what they saw.
I looked at the road, then back, and the plane was going straight down.
A couple of seconds later,
I saw the whole sky just turn red.
David Holm also watched as the piston twin-engine plane came spiraling down.
I came running into the house saying to my wife, there's been a plane crash.
As the plane took a nosedive into the ground, he told his wife to call 911.
And that's when I ran out the door and came down here.
The plane caused a huge explosion, leaving no chance for survivors.
I'm standing in the middle of all of this fire in my slippers. You don't think about that. You're just looking for survivors. You're looking for any signs of life. And I couldn't find anything.
The pilot was 61-year-old Alex Balson, an experienced aviator with his own flight school. Originally from Germany, he moved from Calgary to Vancouver Island in the past year. Balson was headed back to Canada from Mexico when the Piper Aerostar he was flying crashed into the northern tip of the island.
It's scary because there are houses everywhere in these woods.
This FlightAware tracking video appears to show the plane coming in for a landing at the Nanaimo airport. The plane circles and then simply disappears. Remarkably, it hit a 2-acre parcel of parkland on Gabriola, missing the homes on each side.
Somebody said, well, maybe he was looking for a place to land. I said, the way that plane was, he was not looking for a place to land because it was out of control.
While residents were among the first to respond, the Gabriola Volunteer Fire Department got on the scene within 6 minutes of the crash. First, seeing debris, parts of the engine and propellers scattered everywhere.
When we first got there was fire, flames, and members of the public trying to assist and looking for survivors.
Today, much of the close-knit island community is in shock.
It was very hard to believe that it was a plane crash, and I never thought in my whole life I would see the plane crash.
Devastating, the loss of lives. Something could have happened like this, so close to home.
The Transportation Safety Board says the plane hit the ground hard and fast. The damage was so extensive that they haven't even been able to actually see the plane's registration number. That is holding back the investigation. Now, it will likely be at least weeks before we have more answers. And I will be back later in the show with an interview with a woman who saw part of the crash and who is really quite shaken up today. Mike?
All right, Anita, thanks very much. Live on Gabriola Island tonight. Carl Pekarek went to the emergency room with severe stomach pain twice, but both times doctors sent the Burnaby man home. Turns out he had stage 4 cancer. His grieving family believes an accurate diagnosis might have given him more time for treatment and pain management. Now, as Rihanna Schmunk reports, a local health authority is launching a patient safety review to re-examine the treatment Pekarek received.
That was when he came to the hospital in VGH and they kept him and did the biopsy.
Chantal Pekarek is missing her best friend.
So what I took for now while I was waiting, yeah.
Chantal's former husband, Carl Pekarek, recently died of cancer. They were divorced, but still close, and she was by his side as he struggled to get properly diagnosed.
He was my best friend, and it is hard to see somebody to be in such a pain.
Carl went to the emergency room at Vancouver General Hospital with severe stomach pain in June. Doctors ran blood tests, diagnosed constipation, and sent him home. He went to the ER at Royal Columbian Hospital days later for a second opinion when the pain didn't go away. Again, staff said it was constipation and told him to head home. Physicians at both hospitals missed stage 4 gallbladder cancer spreading to Carl's liver.
Pretty sad that they kind of didn't catch it when he had gone for help finally with all the pain. Nobody caught it until it was really way too late.
Carl got an accurate diagnosis a month after his first hospital visit. He died in October. Vancouver Coastal Health and Fraser Health say they can't comment on the specifics of the Pekarek case due to patient confidentiality, but both say they do take patient safety seriously. And after CBC News contacted Fraser Health about the Pekarek case, the authority says it will be launching a patient safety review to re-examine the care Pekarek received at Royal Columbian. The family knows earlier answers likely wouldn't have saved Carl's life, but they say it could have meant better pain management and maybe a better quality of life.
I just wish they gave him the proper painkillers just to have given him what he needed to manage the pain. My dad is a heck of a man. He's probably what all people should aspire to be like. He had a very good life, and I wish the end of it wasn't so painful.
Rihanna Schmunk, CBC News, Vancouver.
Vancouver police laid out a spread today of stolen goods worth close to $130,000 seized from an East Vancouver home. The vast array of items was found in a house at Victoria Drive and 49th Avenue in late November. On display, $40,000 worth of alcohol in cases and single bottles, to various brand name clothing and underwear. Police say they received a tip that stolen goods were being sold there. 2 people from Vancouver were arrested and released, but a spokesperson says police will be recommending charges.
We are working with multiple retail stores to get their property back to them. Unfortunately, theft does happen in Vancouver. Since the beginning of the year, we have had close to 2,000 shoplifting events, which the Vancouver police have responded to.
And those stats are similar to last year's shoplifting numbers. Well, heartless thieves broke into the Surrey Christmas Bureau early this morning, stealing thousands of dollars worth of gifts meant for teenagers from low-income families. As Andrea Ross reports, the charity is now hoping for some last-minute donations.
This day started out pretty badly. It is really the Grinch that stole Christmas.
3 laptops and 2 drones stolen early this morning, and the thief or thieves didn't stop there.
They also made off with about $6,000 worth of gift cards that were intended for teenage gifts.
It happened just before 6:30, breaking in through the back door of the Christmas Bureau office. An alarm went off and the RCMP were called, but it was too late. Within minutes, gifts meant for low-income families gone.
It'd be probably pretty close to $10,000.
Thank you, Merry Christmas. Thank you so much. Each year, the Surrey Christmas Bureau makes the holidays a little sweeter for more than 2,000 low-income families, offering things like toys, stocking stuffers, and grocery cards. RCMP are now investigating.
They've been taking fingerprints at the site of the break-in and around the areas where the computers were located as well.
The charity hands out gifts every day at this time of year. Now it's asking for the public's help.
I believe in the people of Surrey. I am sure the community will come forward and help us replace all of these gift cards.
Donations can be made in person on the Christmas Bureau website or at any fire station in Surrey. Andrea Ross, CBC News, Surrey.
Well, after nearly a decade of talk and planning, a new park is coming to downtown Vancouver. Final approval was just given to the project at Richards and Smythe, but it's not going to come cheap. When the project was proposed in 2011, the budget was $6 million. Since then, it's more than doubled to $14 million. The Yaletown Park will replace a large parking lot there. It'll include a small cafe, walking bridge, and overhead sky frames. and annual maintenance costs of $500,000. The steep price tag spurred 3 councillors to vote against the park. If your regular commute includes traveling through the downtown core, get set for some traffic headaches starting in January that'll last for 4 months. This is why. Yes, another water main break last night on Georgia Street near the Vancouver Art Gallery. It's at least the 3rd break in recent months. The 100-year-old main has reached the end of its life, and so the city's decided the entire water main along Georgia Street should be replaced.
But we have repaired this line in the past. We know it's at the end of life, so we do have plans to come back the first week in January and change 3 blocks of pipe, including this section here.
In September, the water main ruptured in the same spot. That break resulted in a geyser shooting water hundreds of meters into the air. Now the city is committing to replace the 100-year-old main, but that means months of closures on West Georgia while they swap out the 375-meter stretch of pipe and sewer. Work is set to begin January 6th with a completion target of April. It will be one of the biggest housing projects led by a First Nation in Canada. Members of the Squamish Nation have voted to approve a $3 billion development at the south end of the Burrard Street Bridge. As Angela Sherritt reports, Sanok will include 11 towers and 6,000 rental housing units.
The Squamish people have given us a resounding mandate to move forward on the Sanok development.
An historic yes, a landslide vote to transform this land called Sanok into the dwelling place for thousands.
It makes me feel emotional.
Janice George is the hereditary chief of Sanok, also the name of the Squamish Nation housing development.
Now we're going to build these mega, buildings that will benefit Vancouver and our people.
A big deal since her people were removed from their homes by the BC government here just over 100 years ago.
Now, 4.7 hectares of land here was returned to the Squamish people through a land claim settlement in the year 2000. Many say that, as well as the development here, will have ripple effects for generations.
It's a change for us, but we deserve it. We deserve to have, we deserve to benefit from this land our ancestors kept for us, like everybody else in Vancouver.
But some Squamish Nation members question the revenue sharing with such a large corporation.
That amount of money doesn't spread very far when you're a nation of 4,000 members.
Taylor waited several years on a 1,000-person wait list for on-reserve housing. She says this is desperately needed.
We're growing more as a community rather than seeking handouts, and so from the government itself. And so I believe we're taking a step in the right direction.
This land, though, can't be owned by the Squamish Nation. It is still reserve land or crown land under the Indian Act, so it will be leased from Canada for 120 years. It's why getting into the real estate market for First Nations isn't so common.
Most of the time, First Nations are looking at more industry, more business. Looking at rental housing only, though, is incredibly unique.
Gosnell Myers says that may change if Indigenous Affairs starts to recognize the Aboriginal title of more Indigenous nations.
It's like a sign for us to be more assertive and assert our identity on this land.
Shovels could be in the ground here as early as 18 months from now. Angela Sterrett, CBC News, Vancouver.
Brett's here with the first check of the forecast. I was armed with the full-size, very annoying golf umbrella today.
Yeah.
You know, ramming speed. With
Yeah, you need one of those. And don't be putting it away anytime soon, because realistically, you're going to need this for the next, 24 hours or so, maybe even till the end of the week. But instead of focusing on sort of like the doom and gloom with all the rain, I wanted to maybe give you a bit of a treat to what the rest of the country is experiencing. And I say this a bit tongue-in-cheek. Anywhere east of the Rockies right now is essentially below freezing. And not only that, there are 5 provinces right now where there is an extreme cold warning, including Ontario, Quebec, Saskatchewan, and Alberta. And like Yellowknife right now, it would be feeling closer to -50 with the wind chill. So suddenly that rain Doesn't seem so bad, does it? Temperatures across the lower mainland right around 7 degrees or so, which is certainly warmer than the rest of the country, but definitely around that seasonal mark. And we are going to be watching for these continued showers to just be sticking around for really the next foreseeable future. I say showers right now because it's really just kind of ramping up a little bit. By the time we get into the overnight period, that's when it's going to be falling at about its heaviest. But in terms of the look ahead here, you're going to notice one thing: rain at pretty well every interval of time here, so keep that umbrella handy for sure. Temperatures, though, not really the story. They're not going to be budging all that much, so tonight it's going to be feeling relatively mild, probably not getting much colder than what we're at now. And by tomorrow afternoon, well, not much warmer than what we're at either. So there's not a lot of variability there, but in the end, this is actually going to be bringing some good news for skiers and snowboarders, and I'll have that story when I come back.
We'll look forward to that. Thanks, Brett. Talk to you in a bit. And Leanne Young is in for Dan Burrett tonight. The 11 o'clock newscast.
That's right.
He'll be following the...
Escaping the rainfall.
Oh, good for him.
Some tropical location.
Nice timing, right? I know you're going to have more on the plane crash, but what else are you working on tonight?
So we've been talking about the City of Vancouver's proposed tax hike, so 8%. Lots of people unhappy about that. So the city is now looking at alternative scenarios now. So our reporter Rafferty Baker was out at City Hall today. So they're looking at what they'd have to cut if they went down to 5, 6, 7%. We'll have more of that on the 11 o'clock news.
Okay, look forward to that. Now, before we go to break, here's something you don't see every day. A bald eagle got itself into kind of a sticky situation fighting off an octopus off the coast of northern Vancouver Island this week.
Workers at a fish farm near Quatsino Island heard the screeching and splashing of the eagle first. The crew decided to step in and save the bird. It spent a few minutes recovering on the shoreline before flying off. They don't know how the fight started, but they think that the eagle tried to pluck the octopus from the water before realizing how big it was and becoming prey itself.
You wouldn't think it would go that way, would you? You'd think the eagle would be in a better situation.
I think those things are massive, though. I think the giant Pacific octopus is like the largest in its species. 7 meters is what I'm told.
They both survived.
They did, thanks to some human intervention.
Yeah, exactly. All right, just a reminder, you can watch this newscast live on CBC Gem. The free app is also where you can find other CBC programs. Of course, CBC Vancouver, also on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram. 2 babies switched at birth. Now, 50 years later, they're reuniting with their rightful families. You won't want to miss this incredible story coming up next.
For the first time ever, we've raised more than $1 million for BC food banks.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for coming down.
Thank you for all of your donations. If you missed the fun, you could still make a difference by donating.
cbc.ca/open house.
And thanks for staying with us online during the 3-minute television commercial break. As the song goes, Leanne, there's no place like home for the holidays, but for some in our country, home isn't always a welcoming place.
CBC's Taylor Simmons saw that change today for 12 families in Ontario today, as Habitat for Humanity handed them keys to brand new homes.
Open it. Ah! Yes! Go, 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 go!
It's a day 3 years in the making.
Your neighbors!
A dozen families stepping into a new future.
How are you feeling in your new home? I'm very excited. I didn't get any sleep last night waiting for this. That's yours. You like it, eh? Good night.
For Dion Carter, the move-in is a relief. Before this, she shared a 3-bedroom apartment with her brother and 3 children.
Very tight. We didn't have control of the heating or anything like that, so when it did get cold, it was very cold for us to manage. There was a pest problem in the building, so...
1, 2, 3! The project began in 2016. It's the largest build in Habitat for Humanity's 3-decade history in the GTA. The finished development includes 50 homes, housing 228 people, including 145 kids.
This is home, this is a community, this is a future that they had previously only imagined.
To get a home, recipients must be in need and have an income. They have to put in 500 hours of sweat, too.
What's on my room? Right there.
For Carter's son, Zavon, who lives with ADHD, the building process didn't just give him a new home, it gave him new direction.
I had a lot of fun doing the volunteering here. So when my teachers told me about, oh yeah, it's an apprenticeship program that deals with all the trades and all the stuff, and I said, that sounds like a great idea, like why not?
And I'm very grateful that those people talked to him, those people showed him that he had no limitations, even though some people may think he did. And now he can turn that limitation into a successful career at some point.
Carter showed her appreciation today as the group marked their success together.
We are so happy that Habitat exists, and we are grateful for all the volunteers, donors, board members, and everyone that made this dream a reality. Thank you.
Taylor Simmons, CBC News, Toronto.
Oh, that was so nice.
It is. It's a good program.
It is. It's a great program. It's always so nice to see deserving people get the things that they should get, you know? Yeah.
It's the community to get involved, so there you go.
Yeah, absolutely. Good.
All right. Thanks for joining us for this part.
You're welcome. This is fun. I've never done this before. Yeah.
And we'll be back with more news in just a second. Okay, it's the kind of mistake that's never supposed to happen. Children switched at birth, sent home with the wrong family, but it did happen to two men in Newfoundland, and it took them more than 50 years to discover the truth. Mark Quinn brings us this CBC exclusive story.
It's definitely life-changing. It's a lot of sleepless nights.
I didn't want to know.
Was it done intentionally? Was it an accident?
We're still having a hard time with it.
You got a million questions that you'll never have answers to.
This is a story about families, about two little boys, about mums and dads. The boys grew up in happy times, in happy families, but they didn't know a secret. Something that happened way back at the very beginning. Imagine the unimaginable. Your life, those memories, that family, that life you lived was supposed to be someone else's. And it all happened by chance. Clarence Hines is opening up about something painful. It isn't easy to talk about. It's something he rejected at first and is still trying to accept. This is the 11th house that Clarence has built. Hard work, but nothing compared to learning his identity was built on a mistake that's still rippling through two large families.
This picture here, me and Mom. Growing up, everyone said it looks like Mom, right?
Clarence may look like her, but she's not the woman who gave birth to him.
I love my parents. Just basically, my parents was everything growing up.
But now, everything he thought he knew about them and the brothers and sisters he grew up with in St. Bernard's has been turned upside down.
I went through a hard time a couple winters ago.
After Clarence was born at the Come By Chance Cottage Hospital, he was sent home with the wrong family.
We're still having a hard time with it. Like some of my family members are still dealing with it now. It's very hard.
How would you describe it? He was switched at birth with this man, Craig Avery.
I don't know how you can describe it. It's so hurtful. It's like your heart is broken all the time. Deprived of our families for 56 years.
They were born in Come By Chance on the same day. Somehow they were sent home with each other's parents. Clarence went home with Craig's birth parents to St. Bernard's, and Craig went home with Clarence's birth parents to this home in Hillview.
It's unbelievable that something like that could happen. You know, these people are supposed to be professionals and do what they're supposed to do, and it was just, to me, utter neglect.
This is where it happened. The Come By Chance Cottage Hospital that once stood behind me was torn down in the mid-1980s. But this is where Clarence and Craig's lives first became entangled in 1962. An entanglement that wouldn't have been discovered if it weren't for a series of chance happenings that began 50 years later. The first one happened here. A few years ago, both Craig and Clarence were hired at Bull Arm, where they both worked in the same building on the Hebron project. They may have passed each other at work 100 times without thinking twice, until yet another unlikely chance meeting.
What's your father doing there?
Craig's wife, Tracy Avery, was also hired at Bull Arm, and she's the person who put it all together.
My first day there, I saw him, and I went to Craig right away. I said, my God, I said, there's somebody here who looks just like Clifford, which is Craig's brother.
She was struck by how much Clarence looks like her husband's brother, Clifford. And then she learned Clarence and Craig have the same birthday.
So right away, I'm like, where were you born? And he said, come a chance. I just thought that, you know, something is not right.
For Clarence and Craig, this wasn't coming completely out of the blue. There had been hints before.
Growing up, I was told I didn't look like none of the family that I was growing up with.
Courtney was born on Father's birthday.
But now it was getting real. Eventually, Craig had a DNA test done that showed he and his brother Clifford couldn't have had the same father. And then, eventually, Clarence had a test that showed his DNA was a 100% match with Clarence's brother, Clifford. The evidence was piling up, and it hit Clarence hard. He stayed in bed and didn't leave home for weeks. All this work stopped, and he says there were a lot of tears.
I broke down and all this plan in my mind, and I had to go to my doctor and everything, and but I don't know, it's not getting no easier, but
it's still playing out because they have questions that can never be answered. The Come By Chance Hospital and the people who work there are gone.
I can't believe that trust in a hospital. You go in to have a baby, and here they are sending you home with somebody else.
That can't be fixed now, and they both have family members they'll never know. Clifford, the brother who some said could be Clarence's twin, died after the DNA test. They never met. And their parents, all four of them, died before any of this was known.
What hurts a lot is knowing that your parents are gone to their grave and they have no idea, right? And they never will. Right? And we never ever got to meet our parents.
Yeah.
And now, a trip down memory lane that's a pleasure for many people is agony.
You never got to be there, special occasions and stuff like that with your brothers and sisters, and you never got to grow up with them. It's hard.
It does weigh on Tracy, who questions if she should have pursued this at all.
A couple times when we've gotten together and stuff, I'm like, do you guys wish that I wouldn't have said anything or that it wouldn't have? And two of them said, no, not at all. Because, you know, you got family out there, you need to know that.
Craig and Clarence have been spending more time together. They do have a lot of questions for each other. And this year promises to be special, their first Christmas with their newfound families.
I had a happy childhood and I had a happy teenage years and growing up. Everything was good, and like they're still my family, right? You know, I got two big families now, and hopefully one day it'll all be one big family.
CBC's Mark Quinn with that amazing story from St. John's, Newfoundland. Well, moving on to political news now. Expect a fiscal update on the state of the Canadian economy from the Liberal minority government in the coming days. No specific date has been set, but the finance minister says Canadians will get details before MPs break for Christmas.
What they'll see is that we continue to have a strong economy, that we are strong enough that we can be prepared in the case of any challenges that might come because of changing trading relationships around the world, and able to continue investing in their behalf to keep them confident for the future.
Those changing trade relationships include the yet-to-be-ratified Canada-US-Mexico agreement, amended and signed just yesterday. In addition, unresolved trade talks between the U.S. and China, between the U.S. and EU, and the Brexit process in the U.K. have led to more global uncertainty. And political leaders in Britain were making their final whistle stops today ahead of tomorrow's election. It's the third time in 4 years voters there will be heading to the polls. And as Renee Filipponi reports, Brexit has been the big issue on the campaign trail.
In a conservative riding of East London, people talk politics in between Christmas shopping. But the topic doesn't bring a lot of cheer.
I think it's a waste of time and a load of rubbish because we've already done it. We've said what we wanted and it's got to do it all again.
I'm just fed up with them all. They say one thing and don't do it. I've got to go and vote tomorrow, but I still don't know what I'm going to vote.
This stallholder backed Brexit, like many here, and he says it's time to get it done.
We need to honour the referendum and move on, move forward. We've got homeless people, we've got people living in doorways. Instead of them being homeless, we call them rough sleepers. With other issues.
What am I going to do?
Get Brexit done. It's been Boris Johnson's mantra. He spent the final day campaigning across the UK, pitching what he calls his oven-ready deal.
Tomorrow, crucial choice facing the country. Do we go forward, get Brexit done, unite and level up across our country, or do we waste a year, 2 years more, dither and delay?
The latest polls predict a Conservative majority, but it could be close. Jeremy Corbyn spent his day in marginal seats, promising a new referendum and an end to austerity. He said there's a clear choice.
The question is, when you go to vote, you need to know that the people you're electing not just mean what they say, but say what they mean and carry it out when they go into government. And so the choice is there.
Both leaders sticking to message in the final hours of the campaign, hoping for the results they want, knowing the outcome of tomorrow's election will shape the future of the UK. Renee Filipponi, CBC News, Romford.
And be sure to watch this newscast live tomorrow when Renee will join us live in the very wee hours of the morning from the UK with fresh off the press results from the British election. Shocked accounts of a plane crash off Vancouver Island with no survivors. We'll go back to Anita on Gabriola Island to hear from more witnesses right after the break. Here are some of the stories we're following tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
He felt that he was really let down. He couldn't understand why they didn't have the foresight to give him anything.
He went to 2 Metro Vancouver ERs with stomach pain. Both times, doctors missed stage 4 cancer and sent him home. Now his death has prompted a review of patient safety by Fraser Health.
It is really the Grinch that stole Christmas today, and I'm hoping by the end of the day it's going to be a little bit more like It's a Wonderful Life.
The scramble to replace laptop computers and gift cards for low-income families stolen from the Surrey Christmas Bureau. And back to our top story tonight, a plane crashing into the woods of Gabriola Island. All on board were killed and nearby homes narrowly missed. Anita is on Gabriola live tonight. Anita, certainly a difficult time for residents there.
Absolutely, Mike. Many people saw the plane come down, and the explosion was so intense that it actually shook so many of the homes nearby, and residents ran out of their houses to try to help. But the flames were so strong that it was clear that there were no survivors right off the bat. Earlier today, I spoke with a woman who was driving by when it happened. Natalia, you were driving last night as the plane was coming down. Describe to me what happened.
Yeah, I was driving down the road and it was dark. I saw the plane flying normal horizontal way. And now I looked at the road, then back, and the plane was going straight down behind the trees. And a couple seconds later, I saw the whole sky just turn red. I didn't hear the explosion. I was in the car, but yeah. I couldn't believe it was a plane first. It's like just hard to imagine. I thought maybe like fireworks or something. It's like, shooting down and then going straight down. But yeah, this pretty much what I saw.
How did you feel when you saw the sky light up like that and you realized what had happened?
It was very hard to believe that it was a plane crash, and I never thought in my whole life I would see the plane crash. And it's just hard to believe. But yeah, when I found out, I don't know, I'm so happy that nobody on the island got hurt. It's a miracle. I feel very bad for people who was on the plane, and yeah, it was so close to all the residency there and the houses. It's like, it would be a huge tragedy for the island if somebody else got hurt, involved, yeah.
Did you feel the ground shake at all? I know people who were around there said that their homes shook.
I was driving. I didn't even hear the sound, to be honest. I had music on, and yeah, no.
And what did the sky look like?
I just turned red, like the whole sky, immediately. Like 2 seconds after the plane went down, it's like, that's when I know something bad happened for sure. Yeah, I don't know what else to say.
The Transportation Safety Board has been on scene all day trying to figure out why the plane came down so hard and so fast. The damage so extensive that they aren't actually even able to read the registration number on the plane. Now, we do know that the plane was headed from Mexico with a stop in California to Nanaimo. The pilot was 61-year-old Alex Balson, originally from Germany. He lived in Calgary and then moved to Vancouver Island about a year ago. He was a very experienced pilot. In fact, he was a flight instructor. As for the others on board, at this point, it's not actually clear how many others there were. We do know, though, that there are no survivors. The hope is that we will get some answers in the coming days, or at least in the coming weeks. Mike?
All right, Anita, thanks very much. Anita Bathe live on Gabriola Island tonight. And at 6:40, a live look at BC Place. A soggy evening, a soggy day on the south coast. What we can expect for the rest of the week. A breast forecast is next. Well, Greta Thunberg, who has emerged as the face of youth climate activism, has been named Time Magazine's Person of the Year.
Yeah, the 16-year-old is the youngest person to ever be chosen for the honor by the U.S. magazine. In August 2018, Thunberg began skipping class once a week to protest outside the Swedish parliament. She has since inspired a global movement and galvanized millions to call for concrete action. At a UN climate summit today, Thunberg said global leaders should tackle the issue, not hunt for loopholes to get out of doing anything significant.
Pretty impressive, isn't it?
Very impressive. Yeah. I mean, for a 16-year-old, but for anyone. But in all fairness, I didn't really know what constitutes a Person of the Year. Like, what's their criteria for it? Turns out it's a bit of a misnomer because it features a person, a group, idea, or an object that, for better or for worse, has done the most to influence the events of that year. So, for example, 1982, the computer was the person of the year, which was kind of interesting. And it all started back in 1927, Charles Lindbergh, when he first flew across the Atlantic by himself. So it's a pretty big honor to be added onto the list with that, I think.
Now we have a 16-year-old truant, a skipper-outer from school.
Yes, a very passionate one at that, yes, definitely.
Exactly. Yes, well, I'm looking outside.
It's, you're going to be seeing that for a while. I hope you're used to it because you want to revisit it maybe. Let's take a look this morning to see what it was like across the Lower Mainland today. Yeah, there you go. Nothing like a cozy little rain first thing in the morning. Oh, who am I kidding? No, I wish I could have seen the sun, but honestly, the rain is not that bad, especially when you consider how cold it has been across the country. And certainly, this is going to be some good news for skiers and snowboarders. I alluded that a little bit earlier, and here's why. So for the next, honestly, 24 hours or so, what we're seeing right now, largely going to be continuing. It's just going to be a matter of how heavy is that rain falling. At times, it might just be showers, but really, there's not going to be any significant change up in this forecast for the next 24 hours. In terms of the rainfall totals here, when you look at it, you're going to be seeing anywhere between 15 to 30 millimeters largely all across the Lower Mainland. Places, as usual, like Maple Ridge and Coquitlam, could be getting a bit more than that. But I wanted to put this together. This is a look at the freezing levels for Cypress Mountain because it's snowing there right now, and we are getting the largest snowfall of the season so far, 10 to 20 centimeters through this time tomorrow. That's going to be exciting stuff. And freezing levels all the way through the weekend are going to be dropping, so that means they can be even making some snow. And that applies to grouse as well. On the note of snow, I do just want to mention any travel along the Coquihalla and as well Kootenay Pass into the interior are going to be dicey because we are looking at anywhere between 15 to 25 centimeters of snow carrying on throughout the night. And of course, it is going to be an active week, and you're going to be seeing that all the way through here. Showers expected both Thursday and Friday, but if you're going to notice that one thing on Saturday, yeah, that's the sun. I'm doing this specifically just for you, Mike. I know it's a running joke here, but I really do think that right in the middle of all of that rain, we're going to get a nice little break. Wouldn't that be a nice change?
It really would. Well
How
done.
How much do you believe me about this?
I do. I fully trust
okay.
you.
Excellent.
Fully invested in this forecast.
I appreciate it.
Okay, police on one of India's busiest streets are no dummies when it comes to traffic control, but they are making use of some.
Very clever. They are alternating life-size mannequins of police and real officers at traffic stops.
By doing so, we want to confuse these habitual road traffic rule violators.
Yes, so if this seems kind of familiar, the premise is similar to the method used by Coquitlam and Surrey RCMP. Police say adding the fake cops has cut down on speeding. Yep. It has, however, caused traffic jams because the mannequins are now tourist attractions and people keep stopping, of course, to take selfies with them. So you kind of solve one problem, you create another. Well, troubling testimony today at a congressional hearing. In the spotlight, the safety of the Boeing 737 Max aircraft and the credibility of the U.S. regulator that allowed it to fly. That testimony next. 8 months after that deadly Ethiopian Airlines crash, an aviation whistleblower spoke out today in Washington, D.C. And as Susan Ormiston tells us, we're learning new details about the Boeing 737 Max 8 and the many warnings left ignored.
Their photos haunt a hearing room. The lost, their families reminding U.S. legislators that 2 Boeing crashes were not random accidents, they were preventable.
I'm not going to sign off on this airplane until I fly it myself.
Sure, now, but why didn't the FAA ground the airline sooner? After Lion Air crashed, when its own internal review predicted the MAX could crash 15 times over its lifetime with no software changes. A stunning revelation, but the plane kept flying until the second crash.
Can either one of you admit to yourselves that the FAA made a mistake?
I would say that this is something that we need to look at very closely. And
was a mistake made?
Obviously, the result is not satisfactory.
Well, you just can't bring yourself to say that we made a mistake?
It's not like no one raised alarms. Ed Pearson did, then a senior manager at a Boeing factory deeply worried about production.
As I saw firsthand, the factory was stressed beyond anything in my experience.
A former Navy man, he warned Boeing back in July.
When I mentioned that I've seen operations in the military shut down for lesser safety concerns, I will never forget his response, which was, the military isn't a profit-making organization.
Hard to process, every new neglected warning.
It's sad to hear over and over again what could have been done to prevent this.
I'm zigzagging and between, healing and despair.
For Chris Moore, the first Christmas without his daughter.
We would always open presents on Christmas, and Daniel's present was always the nicest because she put a lot of thought into the presents.
Susan Ormiston, CBC News, Washington.
Well, a midday nap may feel indulgent, but it can do actually wonders for the body, mind, and productivity. That's why more and more businesses and even universities are investing in sleep spaces. But as Cass Rusi explains, too much of a good thing can come at a cost.
Slippers are the first sign.
Let's go in and see.
That we're about to enter a cozy space.
You've replicated a cave.
In a sense, yes.
The floors and walls are lined with soft felt that help dampen the noise. Resting areas provide comfort and relaxation.
I think everyone should try this.
This art installation at the University of Toronto is all about the nap. Once frowned upon, napping is not only encouraged here, but celebrated.
We thought, what better place to stage an experiment in slowing down during the day than in a school of architecture.
Summer is the curator of the exhibition, which is here until the spring.
Our students have become more stressed out and have had increasing levels of anxiety in recent years because of our kind of plugged-in life.
We work pretty long hours, and it's really nice to kind of in the middle of the day just take a little bit of a break.
In a sleep-deprived world, catching a few Z's does have its benefits. Research shows it can do everything from boosting your immune system to improving alertness. The latest study involving Swiss adults aged 35 to 75 also found that a daytime nap taken once or twice a week could lower the risk of heart attacks or strokes.
Sleep is by the brain, for the brain, and for the body.
In a 24-hour work cycle where employees are often expected to work long hours, many companies have created nap-friendly spaces.
Companies would realize that an attentive, alert worker is going to do a better job.
This is our premium bed.
Mezabine Rahman used to work in a job that came with long hours. She and her colleagues were often exhausted.
And I would be like, oh my God, I wish there was something where I could go and sleep even for 10 minutes or 15 minutes.
So she created a nap studio in Toronto where $10 gets you 40 winks.
Right now, it's all the white-collar employees. They're the one who needs the nap in between because they're probably working on computers or like doing paperwork, so their eyes, they need to rest.
Researchers are still divided over how long a nap should last. A new study released today warned that people napping for more than 90 minutes were 25% more likely to have a stroke.
Experts say if you need to doze during the day, keep it short, not more than 20 minutes. Cass Rusi, CBC News, Toronto.
Well, everybody was wide awake in Toronto tonight. The King of the North returning to his old court. Kawhi Leonard met by a media circus on his return to Toronto. We'll show you how he was received next. Of course, Kawhi Leonard is a hoops hero in Toronto, leading the Toronto Raptors to score their first NBA championship. And even though he left for his hometown Los Angeles and now plays for the Clippers, there doesn't seem to be any lingering resentment from his northern fans. Greg Ross has more.
Welcome back, Kawhi! A standing ovation from the capacity crowd. Congratulations from his former teammates. And then Kawhi Leonard received his championship ring from Kyle Lowry. Congratulations, Kawhi! The North thanks you! Here's Kawhi. A warm reception for the man who led the Raptors to their first championship in franchise history and then left for his hometown of Los Angeles. Kawhi, that good. But he said he'll never forget how special fans are in Toronto.
Oh, yeah. I mean, they were amazing last year. You know, they rode with us through the ups and downs.
To show his appreciation, Leonard putting up this massive billboard in downtown Toronto, thanking the city. You guys literally just walked out of the office with no jackets so you could see that.
Exactly.
Yep, that's exactly right. Well, you tell me, why is that so important?
Well, he came, gave us everything that we've always wanted, which is a championship, and he delivered and he went home.
Those fans love him for moments like this. For the win! And of course, this. Canada, the NBA title is yours! Memories, Leonard says, came flooding back for him today.
It's my first time back in the city since the parade. Obviously, those flashbacks come back driving over to the arena.
It's those moments that have made his name synonymous with the long-term legacy of the franchise and the country.
Kawhi didn't start the basketball boom in Canada. That's been building for decades, but he really has amplified it and taken it to a different level.
This was Leonard's one and only game in Toronto in the regular season. The only way he could possibly return would be if the Raptors were to face the Clippers in the NBA Finals. Greg Ross, CBC News, Toronto.
Of course, just coming up on 10 o'clock in Toronto, and that game is over. The Raptors ended up losing by 20 points, and Kawhi Leonard scored a team-high 23 points. So a big night for him and his new team, not so much for the Raptors. Leon's here at 11. Thanks for watching tonight. Good night.